Welcome into the Beat Sessions, your place for all things music. I'm your host, Mitchell Weary. Let's talk about this new record from My Morning Jacket, entitled Is. They released that on March 21st. This is the 10th studio album for the Kentucky Rockers and their follow-up to their 2021 eponymous record. And I want to begin this piece by starting about the concept of the pursuit of perfection. And especially after listening to the interview that Jim James did with Zane Lowe, I think it's something that really is at the heart of this record, and it's driving it in so many different ways. I think the idea of pursuing perfection is something that anybody with ambition does, anybody with drive, anybody with a long-term goal. And it extends outside the world of music and art in general. I think any of us that wakes up, whether you're a software engineer or a scientist or a woodworker or plumber, no matter what it is that you're trying to do, all of us wake up every day and we try to be better at that craft, better at that skill. And a big factor is the way that the world just continues to spin, and we have to keep up with it. Human innovation is constantly changing pretty much every aspect of every field out there. And I think that one of the toughest challenges as we get older is remaining relevant, trying to keep up with the thing that we love so much. I would say that this record really captures the spirit of what this band has always tried to do, which is something a little different with each record. My Morning Jacket is brilliant as far as the way that they have cemented their style. I think there's always going to be signature aspects of their music, no matter what record you're listening to. I love Jim James's voice. I think his lyrics, especially as you watch him grow as a person, have always been so insightful. Whether you find him in a dark place, whether you find him in a place of contentment or enlightenment, which is where I feel he is now. The Zane Lowe interview is fascinating. It starts off at 100 miles an hour, and he starts talking about ketamine therapy. This is something that we've talked about on the channel before, the modern day use of psychedelics for therapeutic reasons. Now, I'm not saying just go out there and do a bunch of them and everything will be okay. That's not the point at all. But it's the perspective that he has and the stories that he tells about his experience. Talks about doing ayahuasca as well. And I love the comment that he makes about looking down on himself, his newer self, cradling his old self and telling him, it's going to be okay, man. It's going to be all right. I think that in the pursuit of perfection, we can often be our own worst enemy. We can be our worst critics. I know that I am so guilty of it. And the beautiful thing about therapy, I would say in general, but also the use of these certain substances, is that they suppress the ego. And it's another big driving factor as to why I think this record is so incredible. I think that from time to time, whether you choose that route or whether you find a different way to cultivate that mindset, it's so important to remember that you are important, that you're adding value to the world with your craft, what it is that you're doing. Not everybody's going to appreciate that. That just happens. But it's important to be mindful of the fact that if you're giving anything that you were pursuing 100% of your effort, if you wake up and you did your due diligence and you know that you tried your best day after day after day, it's important to not beat yourself up. We're all going to fail, but in that failure, you need to realize the lessons that need to be taken from that failure and try to overcome being your own worst enemy, trying to beat yourself down too much. None of us are perfect. The pursuit of the perfection is arguably the most ironic aspect of the human condition. I think that it can be very healthy to have that mindset, but it's important, again, to cultivate it in a way where you're not beating yourself up too much. Jim James is a guy that has really enjoyed having control over pretty much every aspect of his music throughout his career. And he talks about that in that interview with Zane Lowe, how he, in order to feel validation and in wanting to make everything just be as right as it could possibly be, wanted to have his hand in everything. And I think that's another thing that makes this record so special. There's always been other co-producers that have worked with the band over the years, but this is the first time that they have just allowed an individual to guide them, to coach them, as he says in that interview. Brendan O'Brien, bringing him aboard. What an amazing person he is, working with the likes of Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. I think he's worked with Rage Against the Machine and just so many bands from a production standpoint and an engineering standpoint. And this is something I like to talk about on the channel too. The idea of just having that outside pair of ears, someone to have some input. I think in the past, that has been the role with whomever has been working with Jim James from the production standpoint. But what I love about this record is that he is just letting go. And you can feel the energy of the record, the freedom that the band has, especially Jim, not being involved in that process, just letting someone take on that responsibility and coaching them. That's the analogy that he uses. And he talks about wanting to play hard for coach, wanting to do your best for coach. And to get outside of the sports analogy, it's working with a guy like Brendan O'Brien, someone who is so good at what he does, someone who is so reputable, and knowing that you're just focused on the construction of the compositions, and that if you bring your A game, you know, he's going to shut certain things down, but he's also the type of person that can be motivating, that can play off the positives of certain things, even if it's just a riff in a demo, or maybe a particular beat, or, you know, any small piece of something can become a great composition. And this is a record where I think, in knowing that a lot of these songs came towards the end of the process, and a lot of them came from just pieces rather than full demos, full songs that were already written. So I love that aspect. This band, to get to the music, this is an interesting record coming off of the eponymous record, because if you've seen this band live, they're incredible, and they can just jam out for days on a song. And I love that about the live experience with them. The last record, the eponymous record, is a fantastic record in my opinion, but there were also criticisms levied against it. I read a lot of them when I was doing that review that talked about how My Morning Jacket is attempting to be a jam band, which I personally don't think they have, you know, really ever tried to do until that last record. And even then, I still feel like they were just going for bigger moments, longer compositions, trying to flesh out the stories that were being told. And whether that resonated with you or not, that's totally a matter of opinion. I think that talking about your favorite My Morning Jacket record is a great topic of conversation. I would love to hear it in the comments from all of you what your favorite record is, because I guarantee you, if you pulled 10 different individuals and asked them, you might get 10 different responses. The songs on this record, though, what I love about them is that they are tighter, they are focused, they almost have sort of like a pop sensibility with the time frame that most of them run. The song Time Waited is a little longer than most of them. I think that crosses about 5 minutes here. Just want to double check that. Yeah, that song, not Time Waited, but Beginning from the End is a song that hits right around the 5 minute mark. River Road as well, towards the end of the record, does it also. But these songs, while being tight and being really concise and doing a lot within a very limited amount of space, are songs that have that potential to be fleshed out and to incorporate some type of jam if you go to see them live. I think that there's a few moments on this record where, you know, there does feel like some hiccups, but that's every My Morning Jacket record. I think that this is a band that throughout the years, again, has really done their best in cultivating their sound to do something different. You still get that Southern rock foundation. There's elements of Americana. There's psychedelia at work, soul, blues. You know, they've been able to incorporate all of these elements for the most part seamlessly into the compositions that are on all of their records. And you're definitely getting that here. It's the shortest record that they've ever put out, so that kind of makes it fun. I think that, and it's going back to that Zane Lowe interview, they talk about the idea of resting on things. Sometimes, and Jim admits this, he's like, sometimes I would just pull the trigger too quick on something, shut it down. And, you know, whether it's a positive opinion or a negative opinion, I think it's great to go back and to re-experience things. You may find yourself in a different frame of mind. There could be any number of circumstances that allow you to see something differently in that composition, in that piece of art, in whatever it might be that you're doing. So I love the spiritual nature of this record. 39 minutes, you can spin it a bunch, and I think it is a record that for many of you, it might not hit right off the bat. And this review might seem a little long-winded, talking about all these, I guess, thematic elements to the record, but I think it's important. I think that it's a big part of the drive of this record and the drive of all of their records, frankly, and just an important thing to talk about. I know that I've really enjoyed this record 6 times now in the last few days. I've been really busy with work, but any bit of time that I've had, this has gone on, and just reflecting on it, reflecting on that interview that he did with Zayn, and just knowing how thoughtful and honest and to a degree vulnerable he is with this album. But the cool thing is that I think creatively the band definitely felt like that element of their creativity was stymied for a bit. Between Waterfall and Waterfall 2, you had a 5-year gap. And even with Waterfall 2, you had songs that came from those first sessions. So there really was a time when it felt like they were going to call it quits. Like the creativity had run its course. They had done what they set out to do, and that was it. And sometimes I do think it is important to acknowledge that, but it's great to know that Jim has had these experiences in the last few years and has shifted that mindset. He's found himself in a healthier place. And talking about creating for oneself, I think Jim is a guy that is in that zone, knowing that, you know, I'm making music to express myself and to make myself happy. And if it resonates, great. And if not, that's cool too. Maybe I do something down the road that hits you a little harder, that you're into a little more. But getting into the track list on this album starts out with Out in the Open. And I love the titles of all of these, like pretty much all of these songs through 1 through 6. Out in the Open, Half a Lifetime, Everyday Magic, I Can Hear Your Love, Time Waited, Beginning from the Ending. And talking about the idea of love real quick before we get into this, I want to backtrack. Something else that comes up in that conversation, learning to love oneself in that process of making mistakes and trying not to be your own worst critic. Excuse me. There's a lot of love songs on this record, but I think the way that the lyrics come off, you know, it could be love about another individual, but I read it so much as loving oneself, looking back on the person that you were, and in lyrically him talking to that person from this new perspective, being able to go back retroactively and give that person a pep talk. There's a lot of these love songs that I would argue really capture that essence, and a big part of the brilliance, in my opinion, and why I'm so in love with this record. I think it is a fantastic album. But getting into the track list, Out in the Open, start off reading some of these lyrics here. This is a track that, you know, it's got this droning feedback that fades in, and then just a killer riff to open this thing up. I really like the kind of mellow acoustic nature of that riff. You got some soft bass drum that starts to hit together. Vocal is going to enter. Jim sounds great on this record. His voice, it sounds a little aged, but in an endearing and comforting way. And I love that aspect as well of this record. I love the way that this song is going to just slowly build as all the elements trickle in, and it takes off around 2:20, about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. While I'm walking on the ocean, praying in the sand, pledging my devotion, won't you take my hand? That could easily be your former self, this self that, you know, what you were too critical of, that you were too judgmental of. Well, I know the past is hazy and the future scares you too, but I feel my heart is breaking in the present without you. And this, I feel that line is about, you know, still capturing the essence of that person that you were, and the mistakes and everything that you did that you could view as wrong or negative, learning from that. And that's how you get to this point in the first place, is acknowledging that, man, I was off, you know, and I could be better. I need to be better. And so I love that part of this song. I think it's a great moment. Out in the open, the night runs cold, but with the dawn, our world's aglow. In the light of the sun, the waters run into the valley below. Just such a great opening. I'm such a fan of this song and the lyrics in it. Half a Lifetime is your second track. Really unique staccato intro. This is a song that it took me a couple listens for this to grow on me. I will admit the first time I heard this was one of those My Morning Jacket tracks that, peanut butter pudding surprise. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what that is all about. But I think if you give this track time to grow on you, again, sit on it. Let it just kind of develop that feeling towards it. I think after a couple of listens, it'll grow on you. All the instrumentation is there with that staccato style. It's just really quick notes. The vocal goes to work, and it feels like something they have done in the past, but it still feels different. It still feels like something unique and new. Song is going to find cohesive moments in the groove. There's two moments where it happens, and I really think when the song hits those moments, it excels. It really is a special track. Great guitar work on this particular song as well. Everyday Magic is your third track. Driving percussion on this track. Lead riff and light droning synths are going to open this thing up as well. I love the way that the synths drop and then Jim's vocal hits. But those synths, they're going to work back in. I really like the drop and then the build back. Light breezy and melodic. It's got a feeling of 70s rock, in my opinion. And that soul influence that I talk about, which is something that I think is so subtle in their work, but ubiquitous as well. It builds in really strong in the back half. And from a production standpoint, this is a song that it fades out, in my opinion, kind of awkwardly. I'd say that is my one bit of constructive criticism about it is, like, I think that they could have capped this song off and ended it in a more dramatic or satisfying way. It just kind of like fizzles off. And I wasn't a big fan of that, but I think the track overall is very solid. Can I Hear Your Love is your fourth song. Opens with just all the instruments just coming right in, kind of poppy, a little bit of a yacht rock flair, I'd argue, in this song that's driving it. Rhythm guitar shuffles along with a mellow bass riff. Just great build in all the twinkly textures in this song. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And these, just the different segments of this track are just going to work off of each other. It weaves in and out of them. Just a really nice build, one that I enjoyed. Time Waited is your fifth song. This song is exceptional. This might be the marquee track on this record, in my opinion. Great lyrics as well that I want to read, but you get this gorgeous piano, and it almost feels like classic pop. I mean, go back to like the 40s and 50s, maybe something that you might hear in like a musical, or, maybe even like, it's like a seasonal movie, like something around Christmas time where, there's a character that's lonely and longing for something. It really has that essence to it, that spirit, but it is beautiful. It's a song that I cannot wait to see live. The vocal's going to hit. I really love the way that the drums follow brilliantly on this. I think it's just a really nice touch, the way that those come in. Chorus is going to find a bit more energy, a bit more gravitas, so to speak, but it's like all this builds behind big melodies, great guitar work. The piano is just, I still can't get over it. And there's this slide element too. It's a sample of Buddy Amon's in a song called Blue Jade. But reading some of these lyrics here, this is a song, if you heard that twinkle there, it's really, really just gorgeous. Well, they say time waits for no one, dear, and it takes near death to show one, yeah. But time waited for you and me. We know real love takes forever, yeah. Again, he could be talking about another individual, but I feel like he is talking about his former self, going back and just kind of having a conversation with that person. And the clock ticks faster every year, but time waited for you and me. And if we don't watch out, time waited. Yeah, and if we don't watch out, time will run off on us. But if we move right now, time waited. All of the world is here for us. Ain't no spare time. And I did cry on your shoulder, dear, at the thought of getting older, yeah, but time waited for you and me. And if we don't watch out, time waited. Let me get here down a little. Well, no one except you and me. We've got forever, dear. Take all the time you need. And if we don't watch out, time waited. Just really an exceptional moment on this record. I think an exceptional moment in their catalog. And as I said, I think it is the highlight of the record, closing out that B-side. Beginning from the ending is your 6th track. Up-tempo acoustic rhythm and vocal, really picking up the energy a little bit. Subtle texture that builds in behind all of that as well. I love the walk of the bass as that enters in. Just a great little riff and just a fun little walking touch to complement it overall. Soft production on the drums. It's dreamy but pensive. And I think most of these songs really are. Love the piano driven bridge on this thing. Song rocks a bit, it kind of reminded me of the band Chicago a little bit, and just a lot of stuff that they've done throughout their career. Lead guitar riff hits just like right before the 4-minute mark on this track. Again, it is one of the longer songs, but just the way that riff finishes things off. It is a great coda, great outro on this thing. Let Me Know is your 7th song. Driving percussion and simple twinkly synths at work on this thing. The vocal works for a few bars, then everything goes to work behind an up-tempo, almost kind of garage rock feel in this track. It's in and out. It's one of those songs that's really tight, really quick, but who knows if they choose to play it when you see them. It is something that I think could potentially be fleshed out into a jam, so to speak. Your 8th song, Squid Ink. Sludgy blues guitar. This is kind of My Morning Jacket when they decide to get a little heavy, and I enjoy that. I love when they come hard, they come fast, they rock out and take that slightly heavy approach. I think it's something that they've done pretty well for the most part throughout their career. Sludgy blues guitar, mid-tempo rhythm, and just great edge. A little bit of that psychedelic element, proggy synths that are working during the hook that I really enjoyed. It does find more of a conventional rock groove for a bit, like about halfway through. And then the solo is going to hit around 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the hard rock feel just takes over for the rest of this track. Die For It is your 9th song. Soulful, just flickering synths to open this thing up, driving percussion with a simple bass riff that has just a big slide. I really just like the way the bass is sliding on this particular song. It works into a hard rocking territory, getting more of that psychedelic feel. I feel like the back part of this record is a little heavier for the most part. But the combinations of the guitar and the synths really is exceptional. And the back half, very just big solo, and that's really leading the drive on the track. And I think that this is a song that is going to be great live as well, something that could really be jammed out and fleshed out quite a bit. And then River Road is your 10th song. I got to interject some personal stuff here quick before I finish. Squid Ink, if you guys, I've talked about the Tiki Bar on this channel. I opened it up. I made a drink with Squid Ink. It's pretty damn cool. And your 9th song, Die For It, your penultimate track, I put so much time into that bar, and it almost felt like I was dying for it. Not very healthy. And bringing myself back, and the house that I bought, the reason that I kept that job is to buy a house that is on River Road. Like I personally, I just found that kind of a trip. I thought I might share that with you. I definitely enjoyed that personally. But River Road, your closing track, it's got this slow, jaunty bass that dominates the track. Percussion complements that as well. Just a gentle acoustic riff that it almost sounds like a harp. I really liked the playing on that. An ominous mood. This is kind of like a slightly darker, more pensive mood that the end of this album takes, which I think is interesting. But I love the way that the vocal is working in as well. Great arpeggiated riff that this is a track that I couldn't help but think of the song Black Velvet by Alana Miles. Great song. That driving bass that I'm talking about, and just kind of that moody edge, which, given the exploration of the self and the spirit on this thing, it's an interesting way to close it out. But I love it, and I love this record, and I definitely would encourage all of you to give this thing a spin, maybe even give it 2 or 3. Like I said, at 39 minutes, it is their shortest record to date, and it's something that you can easily give a couple of spins within a small amount of time. I'm going to give this thing an 8.2 out of 10. It is a vinyl please for me for sure. And please, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this record too, because I know that My Morning Jacket Records, they're one of those bands that can be polarizing. And especially there are a handful of records where, I've talked to a lot of people over the years that would argue I wasn't quite sure what the band was doing with that. I personally like all their stuff. I think all of their records are great, but it'd be nice to hear from all of you guys as well. Hope you find this review helpful. Please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, do all the things to help me blow this project up in 2025, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. We'll see you next time on the Beat Sessions.